How do I light cinematic images like these? Well, it's not all about lighting. In this video, we will discuss set design, the use of cinematic lens filters, the grip that was used, and when it comes to lighting, we're going to use LED lights, tungsten lights, and strobes ranging from the Nanlux 1200 watt dyno to 50-year-old 2Ks to 40-watt light bulbs and more. You will definitely leave this video adding something to your arsenal. So let's start from the beginning. Set design. I start with two Kupo 12.5-foot 3-section steel wind-up stands. And in order to get an extremely long background pole, I nest two of these pieces of 10-foot galvanized electrical conduit from a hardware store together. I attach to the background stand using Kupo half couplers with 28mm spigots. Then I build a second wall using a Kupo swivel coupler to eliminate needing another light stand, and run it to another stand with a Kupo half coupler. Then, using A-clamps, I attach an unbleached muslin to complete another wall in my set. When shooting cinematic, I like to use a 16:9 horizontal frame, and creating a wide set lets you more easily frame your shots without falling off the background. Also, angling the set walls allows me to create a little forced perspective as well, and fill the frame more easily when I shoot from different angles later on. My next set wall is going to be a 12x12 frame that is skinned with magic cloth. I use magic cloth instead of silk because magic cloth is completely opaque and a silk would reveal the light behind it versus having more of a glow. Next, I put a black V-flat to block the white wall in the corner where the hand-painted backdrop and 12x12 join together. So it feels as if there's more depth behind the set. Now, after my set walls are built, I bring in the props, starting with the props at the back. This 10K is going to be my first prop. I put a Profoto B10 inside of it mounted to a Kupo Titan style clamp or pipe clamp with a baby pin. I cut a hole in the side with a Dremel so I can run a cable out of it. Next, I'm bringing in a 2K Fresnel as a prop, and it will have a Profoto A2 connected to it with a super clamp inside of it. I'm using a Kupo low mighty stand because these older lights only have a junior pin, so you cannot mount them to a traditional C stand without an adapter. Now, I'm going into more detail about the grip, but don't worry, we will get to the lighting that went into these shots as well. But I want you to understand each step of the journey and how I mount these different lighting fixtures. And if you want more details like this in the future, definitely let me know in the comments below. Now I have a Kupo Junior wall plate that I screwed into a pancake. A pancake is the thinnest box in an Apple box family, so I can mount another 2K as low as possible. Now this 2K is a tungsten light using a traditional incandescent bulb. The other 2K I will just be using as a prop and it won't actually be on, but the floor mounted 2K will be running into a 2K dimmer so I can control its power very easily. Next, I mount a string of light bulbs to a roller stand with a boom arm and have this running behind our set. Now before I finish my set design, I'll have my model sit in so I can start to rough out the lighting as well as where her position will be. I do this before I put more props in, just in case I want to move stuff around. It's easier before the set gets a little too cluttered. So now I am pre-lighting, finding what light shapers I want to use and where all my lights will be roughly positioned. I either like to do this the day before and have an assistant or a model lookalike stand in, or while talent is in hair and makeup if it's going to be the day of. Now, when I have this many lights in play, I'm going to use a combination of both strobes and constant lights. I like to know what each light is doing individually when I can. So the first light I am using is a Profoto D2 with a 1/4 CTS and a full stop ND filter on a Nanlite Fresnel lens adapted with a Profoto Bowens mount adapter. The CTS gel is to warm the light up a bit, and the ND filter allows me to shoot at 1.7 using the Fuji GF55 1.7mm lens if I want. Even at its lowest power setting, when using a Fresnel lens, it's still a little bit too much power, so that's why I have the ND. Now this is what my key light looks like all by itself. Next, I add in a 2K Fresnel that is using an actual tungsten bulb. It's more of an accent light, but I want to make sure it's not doing anything unexpected. And here you can see it adding to the image. It's really in the shot more for ambiance. I want it to blow out for a reason, which I'll show you later when I start using lens filters. But for now, I just want to make sure it's not blowing out parts of our model. Next, I add in the 10K. It has been modified with the Profoto B10 that we discussed earlier. I just want this to have a subtle glow, but I also use it to provide some small accents on our model as well. Here you can see the 10K added to the frame. In terms of grip, this is also when we start to get to the next level of wind-up stand. This Kupo heavy-duty wind-up stand that I'll link below along with all the other grip is capable of holding and raising over 150 pounds. It's very difficult to raise and lock a light this big in place with only one person. Therefore, I recommend using a wind-up stand. Next, I add the 2K Fresnel that I modified with a Profoto A2. Here you can see it added to the shot, in which now it's starting to give us a nice rim light and illuminate the sequence a bit. Now the image starts to come alive when I add the fill lights. The first light was a Profoto D3 with a full CTO going through an 8x8 frame on camera left. When added to the scene, it starts to bring us out of the darkness and bring more overall life to the scene while providing very subtle highlights on our model. I have it skinned with an 8x8 magic cloth, which is pretty much the most diffused diffusion you can get. I'm using the Glow 8x8 portable butterfly frame. It comes with a full silk, a black and green rag. It's pretty much one of the things I would recommend everyone buys, period. At its current price, it makes no sense not to own one of these. I have it rigged up so it's on a single stand, so I can easily wheel it around by itself, as I often use it as my fill light. For my next light, I'm using a Nanlux Dyno 1200 watt full RGB light panel. I have it on a Kupo 2-section low base wind-up stand. Weighing in at 57 pounds, this is another light that you want to mount to a crank stand. It's often the light I use to light all my Adorama videos, but here it provides me with soft fill as it goes through a 12x12 magic cloth, as you see here when added to the scene. It's really providing me with all the heavy lifting. And if someone asked me if I could only use one light for this scene, what would it be? Well, here it is all by itself. I would definitely have to say it's the one. I have it dialed down to about 2700 Kelvin, so it's extra warm. The Fresnel light I started with is the only light here that is above 3200 Kelvin, as I have only gelled it with a quarter straw CTS gel. Now, let's talk power distribution, because you can't just plug these lights in anywhere. For instance, the Dyno pulls 1400 watts and the 2K 2000 watts. So they are going to need their own dedicated 20 amp circuit. You can sneak something else on with the Dyno circuit, but I honestly wouldn't push it. The Profoto A2 simply uses a battery along with the B10, but I keep the B10 plugged in so I don't have to change the battery, even if I decide to leave the modeling light on. With the Profoto D3s, you can turn down the recycling, lessening the power draw, and I have had 4 of these on the same 20 amp circuit in a boardroom before, which is not an easy thing to do with some strobes. Now, how do we take this image to the next level and add a bit more atmosphere, making the images look more cinematic? We use lens filters. I'm not a huge filter user, but I recently got these Mavin filters that allow me to magnetically attach and quickly experiment with different filters to add effects. So watch what happens to the light sources when I use these show glow filters. First, the 1/8, then the 1/4, and then the 1/2. They give a slight haze to the light sources, making them feel a bit more cinematic. And now for the blue and gold streak filters, inspired by anamorphic lens flares. First, the gold gives me these warm streaks, and then the blue, which gives me these more neutral streaks. Then next, I'm going to stack a glow filter on top to mix the two effects. I love that these just magnetically pop on, and here I stack the gold streak, the blue streak, with a diffusion filter to make my own star filter. I was originally interested in these filters for the magnetic ND, so I could quickly swap them on and off, because I prefer full NDs for the increased image quality, but happy to find that they had these filters as well. Now let's dig deeper into the lighting. When thinking about cinematic lighting, we think about lighting spaces as well as faces. I find a lot of studio photographers start out will simply set up a background and try to keep everything against the single backdrop. The images become very two-dimensional, and in terms of creating a series of images, the only thing that changes is the model's pose and possibly the lighting. But when lighting cinematically, I think about not only the lights helping to elevate the story and mood, but also enabling the camera to move through the scene. I started shooting straight on and capturing images like these. Then I'll go over to camera right and my fill light becomes my key light and I get images like these. Then I'll move over to camera left and capture images like these. The entire time, I'll move in closer for tighter images. I'll have her looking into the camera and looking out of the camera, smiling and looking off more introspectively, putting together a series of images that begins to make you wonder who this person is, what they are like, what mood they are in. I'll even capture images from above and below. Building a set, working with one fixed lens for an entire shoot, and really letting yourself explore different angles will absolutely make you a better photographer. And when I'm moving around the set, I'm also making lighting changes. For instance, when I'm on camera left, I turn up the 8x8 so it acts as my key light. And I turn down the 12x12 so it doesn't blow out in the background but simply has a subtle glow. I'll use the Profoto remote as well as the Nanlux apps to do this real time. When setting up, I metered all my lights, so I know what they are relative to one another so I can quickly dial them up or down without a lot of guesswork. And if I change too much, I can easily remeter them to get them back exactly where I started without having to look at the monitor and compare two images guessing. When it comes to lighting cinematically, it is very much about the mood, but from a technical standpoint, it's also about getting the lights into the places you need them to do their job and rigging them using the proper stands and grip, whether it's screwing a wall plate onto a pancake or using a heavy-duty wind-up stand. It's also what character your lens has. And if you want to supplement it with filters or not, getting the lighting right helps you set the mood to tell a story. Because as you know, there are levels to this. And stop just standing in the same place and taking the same photo while your subject is moving around and you're just sitting there. It does have its place, but stretch your legs a little bit and create. You'll often find a better angle or something you may want to take further on another shoot. Because as you know, my name's Ab Sesay, and there's levels to this.